here we are, finally back after the Oscars. Apologies for the lengthier than normal layoff. I got sick and lost my voice.
And it was a truncated season.
And it was an insane award season, and then we had a holiday last week. So I have my voice back. I might cough for a moment on the show. I know the last show we did, I was hacking up a storm. So I might cough for a moment, not totally out of it, but I can talk again.
Yes.
So Tim, Oscars post-mortem.
Well,
Parasite, huh?
You let me throw myself on my sword right away. I walked around this town. I was on many television and radio programs explaining exactly why Parasite would not win Best Picture. I do.
Justin Chang wrote an entire column in the LA Times
Yeah.
the day before the Oscars saying the same thing.
You know, and I laid it out so well in so many places. So let me just go ahead and cop to it right now. And generally speaking, our sort of notion about this was that because that film was nominated in the best of what they call international, whatever the hell they call it, now that would undermine it, in the Best Picture category. Yeah, because when you give it to that, you don't have to give it to in the other one. Mm-hmm. You get a whole different set of people up on stage. Everybody's happy, and I was kind of pointed at Once Upon a Time. Mm-hmm.
And I was too,
and pretty clear about it, and was just dead freaking bang wrong.
What I think is interesting is, and it again, the main reason that you and I and a lot of others said it wouldn't happen is because of the assumption that when someone votes for something in foreign language or international or animation or documentary, if that movie is also nominated for Best Picture, by virtue of giving it your vote in its exclusive category, you deprioritize it in Best Picture.
Yeah, because you're normal.
And clearly that did not happen. Really interesting piece, I think it was in the Hollywood Reporter, about the top person, the head of IDPR, who was the one who came on board after the Cannes Film Festival and orchestrated the entire year-long awards campaign that got Parasite basically on the map. Bong Joon-ho relocated his family to Los Angeles permanently during that the awards season so that he was here. He was on call. He was on red carpets. He was doing interviews. He was on television. He was on radio. He was the face of the movie. Yeah. He and that amazing crop of hair.
And he is extremely affable.
Oh, he's more than affable. He's funny. He's charming. He's what you want. You want that guy being the face of it because when you fall in love with a filmmaker, you want to award the film.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Look, needed to have made a good movie, which he did.
Yeah.
Some people appreciate it more than others. I thought it was perfectly reasonable.
But,
Los Angeles Film Critics Association, we did it.
It's the first film that we've given our Best Picture to that has won the Academy Award for Best Picture in, it's been a long time. Possibly since Schindler's List. I'd have to look at the list. I think there might be another one in there somewhere, but also significantly, and I wrote a big old lengthy piece on DigiGods.com. Everybody can go there and look at my pre and post Oscar pieces. But this is only the second time in history that the winner of the Cannes Film Festival, Palme d'Or, has gone on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture.
Which is fascinating.
In point of fact, the only other time that happened was the first year of the Palme d'Or in 1955 when Marty won it.
Wow.
So
Ernest
Borgnine. So now the Cannes Film Festival didn't start in 55. It had been going, since the 1940s. But the Palme d'Or as the top prize, that was created in 1955. So in the history of the Palme d'Or, that has now only happened twice, the first time and now. So there, I think this new Academy class that came in because Cheryl Boone Isaacs really decided to just aggressively open up the Academy membership and invite. Largely, that new class was predominantly international.
International, yeah.
It was a very international class. And I think clearly the presence of more international voting members now makes a difference.
Yeah. You look, considering last year's, Green Book.
Yeah.
And from Green Book to Parasite. And Parasite winning both of the awards, too, for that matter. I can't imagine a further, a wider sort of trek in terms of a sort of perspective and idea about movies.
And I'm going to say this too. It comes down to the preferential ballot.
Mm.
I think they would do well because let's remember again, as much of a game changer as people say this is, it really isn't. It's still the lowest rated Academy Awards in history.
Yeah.
It's the lowest.
Yeah.
It made a little uptick last year, and then it collapsed again this year, which I'm surprised by because I thought that the presence of Ford versus Ferrari, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
The Irishman.
1917, some really high-profile studio
Scorsese's
films.
in the room again.
Scorsese,
Yeah.
I thought
Kino
that,
and all the old guys.
but then again, the really big commercial stuff didn't get nominated. Avengers Endgame, we thought might have a shot at a Best Picture nomination. Didn't happen.
Us came out early in the year, made $170 million.
$170 million.
No nominations.
Didn't get any nominations.
Yeah.
The big summary, even the really acclaimed stuff, didn't slip in there.
Yeah.
And I think unless you're making, and it's a double-edged sword, right? Are you going to nominate some really crappy movie because it was a big box office hit? Oh, I don't think so.
No.
What you need to do is make really good movies and drive them to be box office hits.
Which is why I had you had 10 slots, nine occupied,
Yeah.
one left open.
Yeah.
And you can explain all the reasons
Yeah.
why that's even possible. But that notwithstanding, you have a slot left open that you can put Endgame or Us or any one of those movies in perfectly legitimately, right? You're not making an exception by putting those in that slot. And now you have a whole bunch of people that have a reason to watch that show.
Yeah.
Who did not watch that show? If Endgame is Endgame's a great movie, dude. I love it.
I think it should have been in there.
It's as reasonable a nomination as Black Panther was. Previous
Absolutely.
year. And now you have a whole bunch of people watching that show who didn't watch that show.
I think they need to go back to 5 nominees. I really do. I think it's been bad for ratings to go with the field of 9 or 10. Or 10 or up to 10, however they want to do it. I think that's been bad for ratings. I think it's been bad for the awards generally. I think it creates too much havoc. I think Parasite would still have won this year, but I don't think Green Book would have won last year.
For this year, films would not have been nominated if it were a 5er. Irishman's out for me.
You know what? I think it would have been. I think Ford versus Ferrari, much as I love it, when we were to talk about that
it
today
would be
too.
out.
That'd be out.
That's
I think Little
2.
Women would be out.
Really?
Yeah. I think the 5 would have been Parasite, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, Irishman, and what would that 5th spot have probably been? I'd have to look at the list again.
You know, see, I swap Irishman for Little Women.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Irish. If it weren't for Marty, Irishman wouldn't have ever been in play.
Yeah,
But they need to go back to 5, and you know what else they need to do? And I know the Academy doesn't want to do this. Because
Jojo Rabbit, no, it's out.
Yeah, that's out. Yeah, Jojo
so I got
Rabbit's
2
out.
slots open actually. So now I still put Us in. I still got, even with 5, I still got Us
or Avengers
in that slot. So yeah.
They need to go back to 5, and here's the other thing they need to do. And I know the Academy won't want to do this, and what do they care what I think? But I mean, they really need to clean house. They need new management at the Academy, and they need to terminate. I know it's going to be painful after all these decades. Terminate the contract with ABC. Move to another network. ABC is toxic. ABC is Disney owned. ABC is obsessed with the Oscars bringing in an 18 to 25-year-old audience. That's their advertiser base. Screw them.
Yeah.
Seriously, screw them. Move to NBC. Move to Fox. Move to CBS, for crying out loud. CBS does well with awards shows. Move to CBS. I know all the awards shows are collapsing. I know the Grammys and the Tonys, and they're all really, really we're a little fed up with awards shows. But, do something to sort of reinvigorate the advertiser base and just change the game up a little bit. There are just so many ways that we can try to approach this anew.
I don't look. Maybe it's a streaming thing. I'm not really sure. Movies, theatrical, first run movies.
We need better ones.
You gotta, because look, you have to give people a reason to get out of their house, to get in their car, to drive to the place, to spend the money and all of the associated cost that comes with going with the movie. I think that we did for years. You and I, we did it all our lives. But when we were children, and for that matter, relatively speaking, young men, we did not have 64-inch televisions, 4K,
there you go.
Streaming just about every film we've ever seen in our lives, and frankly, or serialized programming. That's as good as most cinema anyway.
Totally.
You know. And so yeah, I mean, you think about all those years, all through the '90s, when 3, maybe 4 nights a week, we would make that trek into Westwood, to see these movies.
And now we get Vimeo links, and I sit there and I'm getting, I put on my so I don't wake up the family. I put on my my awesome headphones, and it's a cinematic experience.
Yeah, so you got to give people a reason to go out to the movies. I don't think for a while there, I think the idea was we'll just make bigger and more CGI effects, action films, whatever the genre, but we'll just do that, and people will want to come. Lord of the Rings, whatever it is, because of that. The Avatar movies, I think, are counting on that. They're going to be wrong.
They're going to be very wrong.
They took too long.
Yeah.
I have no particular. I am not particularly motivated to go see the Big Blue. And I don't. And whatever it looks like, it's going to look terrible. I promise it's going to look terrible. Because we've already acclimated to that previous look.
Yeah.
And if you look at that movie now on a 4K television, it looks ludicrous. Just perfectly ludicrous. And so, anyway, I'm done.
Well, anyway, it's there are a lot of things to unpack with this year's Oscars, and there are going to be things to unpack with this new Academy voting class for the next few years. But here's the last thing I will say about Parasite. When everybody was picking 1917, they were saying, but it won the Producers Guild and the Directors Guild. Yes, but what we weren't all focusing enough on was the fact that Parasite won the SAG Cast Award, and it upset 1917 with the Writers Guild. It won SAG and WGA. SAG and WGA represent more members of the Academy than the PGA and the DGA. So if it's directors and producers versus actors and writers, actors and writers are going to win every time. They're going to win every time.
Even if all the same people vote
Yep.
in the exact same way, it's just numbers.
Just numbers.
Can't win.
We also lost Kirk Douglas this week, one of the last movie stars, like really last movie stars. 102, was he?
102. Interviewed Kurt at his 99th birthday party.
Wow.
And what was funny about that, I'm interviewing Kurt. He was 99, not long after he had that stroke, but he could still get some stuff out, walking down the red carpet with the wife.
Yeah.
Clive, what's his name? Clive Davies. He was there.
Yeah.
And Kurt and Michael was there. And I'm looking at Michael, and I'm looking at Kurt, and I'm looking at Michael, and I'm looking at Kurt, and I'm thinking, Kurt, 50 years older, and have a stroke, looks younger. I'm like, it was just the most bizarre thing. I'm looking at Michael and Kurt, and I'm like, how the hell does Kurt look younger than Michael? But it was true, and that was, anyway, hung in there a long time.
We only have Olivia de Havilland now.
Yeah.
She is literally the last.
Yeah.
Although, who's 97, who just turned 97, you'd be surprised. And who has the largest following on social media of any star over 90.
Which is weird.
Larry Storch.
Get the half truth.
Yes.
Larry's 97.
Larry is 97.
I guess
he is. He's got 40,000 Facebook followers.
I love it.
He has the largest following on social media of any
gonna
star
have 40,001 now because I'm gonna
And he's active. He's active. He's out there. And
why the hell would you...
He's Larry Storch, man. It's True, but Larry Storch is the greatest thing. Corporal Agarn, my favorite. I love it. So anyway, Kirk Douglas, and we're going to start off with a Kirk Douglas movie that you probably never heard of before. From 1971, close to the kind of the later mid-range of his career. He kept working into the 80s, of course, but he's starting to wind it down in the 1970s. And from 1971, he made a movie with Yul Brynner and the beautiful Samantha Eggar called The Light at the Edge of the World. This is a Jules Verne story, and it's not great, but because Kirk Douglas is in it, I can't resist it. It's all nostalgic now. It's and with Kirk in it, it just suddenly becomes a different movie. And Yul Brynner's doing his thing, and Kirk is doing his thing, and it all takes place in South America. It centers on the most dangerous shipping area and the lighthouse that has to sort of oversee this, and it becomes kind of a battle of wills, if you will, between these two, men. I mean, Yul Brynner's always going toe to toe with somebody. He's always going, whether it's Chuck Heston or whoever it is. And in this case, it's Kirk Douglas, and they're kind of battling for the control of this shipping lane. And Kirk Douglas is the lighthouse keeper, and Yul Brynner is a pirate, and Samantha Eggar, of course, is this this beautiful woman that they both love, and there you go. It's all set up. I don't know how close this is to the Jules Verne. All I know is it's just got some really great stars in it. It looks really cool. It's a little too long, but that's okay. 1971, Kirk Douglas, Yul Brynner in Jules Verne's The Light at the Edge of the World, with a terrific audio commentary, by the way, from film historians Howard Berger and Nathaniel Thompson, and some interviews, which include Elias Salkind, who would go on to do the Superman movies.
Yeah.
And this is the first of the lineup of Kinos that we're going to be talking about today. Tons of Kinos to start off the show. That was the one we wanted to go with right off the top. Tim's got a bunch of Spike Lee titles that Kino has put out, which is really amazing because all of them are great. And I'm going to move on quickly before I turn it over to Tim to a couple of Sergio Corbucci films, which are little known. One is The Hellbenders, and the other is The Specialists. Sergio Corbucci, of course, is the
progenitor of the Django.
Django, that's right. The
movies.
sort of the second tier, but still A-list of the spaghetti western directors.
Yeah.
The Hellbenders is really pretty great. I had seen this a long time ago, hadn't seen it again until recently. Joe Cotton stars in this one, an older Joe Cotton. This is from 1967. This is not, Orson Welles era Joe Cotton. But this is a pretty great movie. It's got a really fun commentary by Alex Cox, who now does nothing but commentaries for movies that he loves. He's not making his own movies anymore for some weird reason. But it's really cool. Alex Cox is quite a film historian himself. And some of you may have seen this under its alternate title called The Cruel Ones, but The Hellbenders is what most people know it under. And it's pretty great. It's one of those post-Civil War, the anarchy of the post-Civil War Western period is what a lot of these movies deal with. And that's basically what's going on here. Joe Cotton plays this ex-Confederate madman, and they still want to keep the Civil War going and lead an invasion of the North and get it all going again. And it's pretty preposterous, but it's really well done. Corbucci just has a lot of fun with it. The Specialists is a little bit different. This has Johnny Hallyday, the recently deceased French legendary singing star. Johnny Hallyday, in addition to being a great recording artist and an amazing singer, starred in a lot of great movies. The Man on the Train, a more recent one, which was Oscar nominated. Another Alex Cox commentary here, which is really terrific. And Johnny Hallyday, not quite as magnetic as Joe Cotton, but he's really good here. He plays a gunfighter who's trying to sort of set things right after his brother was lynched in this one little particular town. And it's a more contained story. It's a less political story, but it's still really well done. And Johnny Hallyday in 1969 was all kinds of beautiful.
The guy's name was Hood.
Yeah.
Hood Dixon. Johnny Hallyday is Hood Dixon.
Fantastic.
I'm thinking about Leo in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
It's just sort of the reverse of
it
that,
is.
of course.
Very much.
Still funny.
Very much. Very much. So let's talk about Spike.
Oh, let's do some Spike movies. And this is interesting. The several that you gave me are mostly the ones that begin Spike's run through the 90s.
Yeah.
So, of course, Spike, She's Gotta Have It, 1986.
Yeah.
Of course, and right after that, School Days and Do the Right Thing in the 80s, in 1989. Excuse me. Funny references to that in the little movie that I made. Miss Daisy, regarding that movie and Driving Miss Daisy. But these movies that I have here are the movies with which he begins to beginning with Mo Better Blues, 1990.
Such a good movie.
A wonderful movie. Spike was still engaged in this particular sort of thing that he was doing after he started making Hollywood movies with Mo Better Blues, though. And it continues for a little while. And I used to, I love all these movies.
Yeah.
I love all these movies. But Spike had this habit of making every movie in his head in one movie.
True.
In the early '90s, he did it
Yeah.
in Jungle Fever again
Yeah.
too. It's like so if you watch those movies, you get this sense of it's as if I'm watching 2 or 3 movies
Yeah.
at once, and they have these sort of connective parts there,
Yeah.
but they don't really go together.
He's stuffing too much into one film.
Into one film.
Yeah.
And had this movie been pared down just a wee bit and been about just one thing,
Yep.
then it would be a completely brilliant movie. Nevertheless, I love this movie. His dad was still doing his scores at this time, although Terrence, the wonderful Terrence Blanchard, starts to work the wonderful Terrence Blanchard at this time. Denzel Washington, of course, his sister in the movie, Cinda Williams in the movie, who had also been in She's Gotta Have It. So Spike Lee getting going in 1990. Then Jungle Fever, Annabella Sciorra, of course, in the news as relating to the Harvey Weinstein trial, which I don't know. As we record today, that's the jury, I think, is still out on what's going on there. She was pivotal in some testimony there. But Annabella Sciorra, just extraordinary in this film with Wesley Snipes and Anthony Quinn and Spike. And you forget what a neat movie this was. But again, it was one of those situations where Spike was telling a whole bunch of stories. That story about his crackhead brother, Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
Probably,
I like getting high. Sam Jackson won Supporting Actor at Cannes for that. People forget,
and Halle Berry launched Halle Berry's career. She played the crackhead.
That's right.
The crack hoe.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in the movie launched her career. Ironic that she started there. Monty Ross, the wonderful producer Monty Ross, still producing Sir Spike, and of course that fantastic score. And then we bump off to Crooklyn. I will full disclosure, when you get the box for Crooklyn, or in many of the mini boxes Crooklyn was in, and the ones that have taglines on them.
Yeah.
I wrote all those taglines. I was working for a guy named Sims, Art Sims. Art Sims, good friend of Spike, was his designer of all of these packages for years and years and years. And Art's secretary was my wife's agent. And I knew my wife's agent, and she knew I was a writer, and she introduced me to Art, and Art loved my writing, and he hired me to write taglines for years. I wrote all the taglines for Crooklyn and for a whole bunch of Rusty Cundiff films and all that kind of stuff. So my taglines on this movie, wonderful movie, more or less kind of autobiographical story for Spike here, telling the story of his father and his mother and his brothers and his sisters growing up in Brooklyn in that brownstone. It's just a beautiful film. A little early, I think, in his career to be doing a reflective film on having grown up in Brooklyn, because this is a little early. This is 1994.
I think there is so much sweetness in Crooklyn. It's really one of my favorite films of his. The only thing I don't like is when he has those sequences when he does the anamorphic squeeze, which is really weird.
And then that thing that he was doing with the float.
I mean, some of the stylistic choices were like really kind of threw me for a loop. But Crooklyn has so much sweetness in it. There's so much pathos that doesn't always show up in Spike's movies. It's his softer side that he doesn't really let us see too often because he likes to be Spike. But there's a real sweetness to Crooklyn that's autobiographical and really beautiful.
You can tell that everybody in that film loves each other, but he's still doing a thing in that film that he stops doing in this film. So this is Clockers, right? So Gun for Hire, adaptation, this is, and so he's contained a little bit, and I loved when this is 1995, if I'm not mistaken, 95, Harvey Keitel. Adaptation of the Richard Price novel, a screenplay by Richard. So Spike's not writing here. Spike is directing and designing, really for the first time in his career. And to me, this is when Spike completely and totally matured as a director, because he couldn't lean on any of those little things that he did in all of those personal films. That little push-pull thing that he would do in many, many movies. All of that had to go out the window. He couldn't play anybody in this movie. This was simply a movie, so he had to be Stanley Kubrick now,
right?
And he nailed it. This is really a Mekhi Phifer, Isaiah Washington, Keith David, really nailed it.
Clockers was the movie when people said, "Oh wow, he can do that Scorsese thing. He can literally kind of let his spikeness go, and he can just
Just make the movie.
Make the movie.
Make
Yep.
the Richard Price movie.
Yep.
And then Summer of Sam. Look, again, he's going back to his childhood, remembering that summer in his youth when that killer was roaming around Brooklyn, committing those horrible murders and reflecting on all of that. So he's kind of back in his life again.
Yep.
In this movie, some really, really good performances in this movie. Unfortunately, there is that one moment in this movie which is fatal to it. When the dog starts talking.
Yep.
And I get
agree.
it. The homeboy said the dog told him to do it.
And the dog talks.
And the dog talks.
And
I'm like,
everyone. I was sitting in the Avco at the press screening.
I was with you.
I know, and that happened, and I think we looked at each other and we thought,
oh no,
really?
No,
We're gonna.
You're 1999, and I'm like, you had to come up with something else. Once the dog starts talking. You got to put that inside his head somehow. Anyway, other than that, a neat movie, and that's how he ends, more or less. This is 1999. That's how he ends the 90s. So these films right here are Spike Lee in the 90s.
All 5 from Kino.
All packed with all kinds of great stuff, by the way. Look, most of them with great stuff. You got an audio commentary on Summer of Sam. And some other special features. No audio commentary, unfortunately, on Crooklyn. That would have been beautiful. You do have an audio commentary on Clockers, and you've got an audio commentary on Mo Better Blues. So about half of them.
We've also got a couple of audio commentaries on 2 Preston Sturges classics. One which he wrote, the other one which he wrote and directed after he got his writing directing career up and running. Preston Sturges wrote The Good Fairy for director William Wyler in 1935, and that was, they're both really on the up curve at that time, and it's a really sweet film, very underrated. It's kind of a sentimental romantic comedy in the Mary Pickford vein, post. Right, we're right at the beginning of the Code, so it's very clean. But it's also still very much connected to the Depression era, and it's not yet World War II. So we're in a moment. We're in a moment right there in the mid-30s, and The Good Fairy is very much notched into it. The idea of this young girl who wants to become kind of a good fairy in life, and all of the trouble that sort of introduces, and it all takes place in Hungary. And because the story that it's based on is a Hungarian story by a writer named Ferenc Molnár. Preston Sturges wrote the screenplay. This was made at the time for the Carl Laemmle and Universal, and William Wyler directed it. And it's a beautiful, sweet film. It's just a really, really wonderful film. The Good Fairy with Margaret Sullivan and Herbert Marshall. Commentary from Simon Abrams, who is a film critic and author. And then you get really pure Preston Sturges in the amazing Great McGinty, which is so much more timely today than it was at the time. Great McGinty is sort of the it's a more cynical flip side to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's about basically a hobo who winds up voting like 36 times in an election, and that makes him a desirable political figure. And he ingratiates himself into the political machine run by quote-unquote the boss, played by Akim Temrov. And it's just where it goes from there is just the height of absurdism, and it is just hysterically wonderful and funny. And it won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. So it's just really, really, really great. Just a terrific movie. Commentary by film historian Sam Dayan. And that's from 1940, and it is really, really fun. I highly recommend it. The Great McGinty. I would have hoped to see, more extras on it, but still, Kino gave us a great gift with that one. So The Great McGinty from Kino. Also, a whole bunch of really cool French films. They've loaded up over at Kino on the classic French titles. And we've got, I'll go through them, Quai des Orfèvres by Henri-Georges Clouzot. Is one of the all-time great Clouzot films. It's one of the all-time great French film noirs, and you can't not have this. It's from 1947, and it is right up there with The Wages of Fear and
Yeah.
Diabolique. It's really just it's absolutely perfect.
Elevator to the gallows.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, all those great French noirs. This is the one that this may even be. I'd say like top 5 French noirs. But it's great. You got you got the inspectors, and you got the murder, and you got all the femme fatale. You got all the noir elements here. But done in the paranoia of 1940s France, World War II, German occupation is on the horizon. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. So, Quai des Orfèvres with Henri-Georges Clouzot, directing Louis Jouvet, Simone Renan, and Bernard Blier, the father of Bertrand Blier. By the way, here's a bit of weirdness that I just discovered. And have you seen the Jesus Rolls yet? You're supposed to review that on radio, aren't I? Thought.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet,
Because I haven't screened it.
The 28th. Yeah, no.
It's really weird. That's a spin-off from The Big Lebowski.
Oh, really?
With John Turturro playing Jesus, the bowler.
Oh,
That's the character.
Coen Brothers directing?
Coen Brothers co-wrote. John Turturro, I think, directed.
Okay.
And Bertrand Blier co-wrote.
Really?
How does Bertrand Blier get pulled into the Coen Brothers? It's weird to me.
Yeah,
he doesn't even speak English.
It's a roundabout sort of little thing.
Yes, it is.
Had to be a fan of Lebowski.
It's just a strange thing. Anyway, his father's in this movie. Claude Sauté, the wonderful Claude Sauté, made Max and the Junkmen with Michel Piccoli and Romy Schneider. Gorgeous freaking Romy Schneider.
Yeah.
Like, shockingly just fantastic in this film. More gorgeous than she's probably been in any other film. I don't know. I mean, I'm not usually a Romy Schneider fan, but my goodness, she's amazing here. And Michel Piccoli, of course, is just always super cool. This is, Claude Sauté makes just really, really great dramas. His more recent films are a little bit more famous. Nelly and Monsieur Arnaud, which is my all-time favorite, and Encore en hiver, Hard in Winter, which is absolutely lovely. This one is more kind of a pseudo-noir. It's not really a great drama. It's kind of a drama noir. It's middling between the two. Piccoli plays a detective, and he's trying to put the case together, and Romy Schneider is kind of like a femme fatale, but it's all done in a much more melodramatic style. But it's really good. Max and the Junkmen. It's worth checking out. Claude Sauté, one of the great French directors of all time. And then we've got 2 by René Clément, and Hope to Die, and The Deadly Trap. The Deadly Trap is probably a little bit more well known because it has an American cast. It's got Frank Langella and Faye Dunaway in role, very young, by the way, like ridiculously young in 1971. And they're both really terrific. The combination of those two actors with René Clément, an all-time legendary French director, is really, really very interesting. Takes place in Paris, and it's about this couple whose children might wind up have been kidnapped. It's really, while this American couple in Paris missing their children, and then all of the drama that transpires and how they deal with it and how they don't deal with it. It's pretty great. Really, really interesting film. And Hope to Die is a little bit more in the traditional René Clément vein. That was made the following year in 1972. And it's kind of there's my cough for the show. Excuse me. I knew it was going to catch up with me. This is a little bit more of a heist film. It's about these French criminals who wind up on the lam, and I won't give you all the twists in it, but it's about a plot gone wrong and how they deal with it, and it's got some great music by Francis Lai, really good performances, especially by Jean-Louis Trintignant and Robert Ryan. Aldo Ray is in it as well. And interestingly, this was I realized later on that the production manager on this was Uli Picard, who I met, who had been the production manager on Nostromo before David Lean died. And Uli Picard gave me a tour of the production offices of Nostromo, and I saw the boards for
That's that guy?
That's the guy, Uli Picard, amazing production manager in Paris. Anyway, this has a great audio commentary that includes Howard Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson. And then author Brian Reisman does the commentary on The Deadly Trap. And then rounding out all the French films here, we've got two by Claude Chabrol, Line of Demarcation and The Third Lover. Neither of the Claude Chabrol has made just more films than anybody has any business even counting. I've done commentaries for them with Andy Klein and FX Feeney, our colleague who recently passed, sadly. I think we did like 8 or 9 Claude Chabrol commentaries, and I keep discovering more and more of them. It's amazing. These are from 1962 and 1966. The Third Lover from 1962 stars Jacques Charrier and Stéphane Audran, who, of course, was his wife at the time. And Stéphane Audran stars as well with Maurice Ronet, Jean Seberg, and Jacques Perrin in Line of Demarcation. Look, here's the deal. Both of these are classic Claude Chabrol films. The Third Lover is probably the most typical of what he does. This is very Hitchcockian and very subversive in the way that it approaches issues of class and deception and fidelity. How would I phrase this? This is an intrusive stranger movie. When somebody kind of like Joseph Losey, and we're going to talk about him too in a second.
Oh, The Servant.
The Servant. It's one of those. It's kind of like that. It's when you invite somebody into your life and they wind up wrecking it. You could say The Cable Guy is one of those too.
Yeah.
And then he does a little bit more of his World War II stuff here in Line of Demarcation. Takes place in 1941 in the Jura Mountains, which are right between Vichy France and Free France, right along the demarcation zone, which is why it's called Line of Demarcation. And gets into a lot of politics, gets into a little bit of melodrama and French resistance group, and people getting helped out of France and spy stuff. There's a little bit of all of that in here, but it still winds up being a very, very cool Claude Chabrol film with a lot of intrigue. Sam Dean again does the commentary on that one, and Kat Ellinger does the commentary on The Third Lover. And then right at the end of this amazing blitz of Kino titles are two by Joseph Losey, which have been out before on DVD, but never on Blu-ray. And God bless you, Kino, for giving us Accident and The Criminal, two of the all-time great Joseph Losey films. They're absolutely terrific. The Dirk Bogarde probably turns in his best or second best performance. We were talking about the Servant.
Yeah.
This is right up there. Once again, working with Joseph Losey and doing amazing work in here. This is written by Harold Pinter as well. So Joseph Losey and Harold Pinter and Dirk Bogarde, you really, really can't go wrong. It's just an absolutely sensational film. The whole tragedy of an Oxford professor who loses a student in a car crash, and then has to sort of reflect on events leading up to it. It's really, really devastating. Very, very timely film too in a lot of ways. The Criminal is probably one of the more famous Joseph Losey films that nobody has ever seen. I keep meeting people like, I keep meaning to see that. I keep wanting to see that, and nobody ever sees it. Kat Ellinger does a great commentary on here as well. Really, really interesting. It has a Stanley Baker, who is a very underrated actor and kind of disappears at a certain point. Plays this criminal mastermind who is trying to organize a heist. I guess you could say this is maybe a little bit more in line with The Killing, the Kubrick film, The Killing, because it's a similar sort of a scenario, a heist centered around a racetrack, but then there's a twist that you do not see coming, and you will never see coming, even though I've told you about it, which sends everything completely sideways, and it becomes one of the most interesting crime films you could possibly imagine. It's much more about character than about plot at that point. Some great supporting performances in here from Patrick McGee, Sam Wanamaker, a lot of other really, really great people in here. And I think it's definitely worth checking out. Sam Wanamaker, by the way, we should point out, Same Sam Wanamaker went
Yeah.
on to become a TV director
Yeah.
and is depicted by Nicholas Hammond in Once Upon a Time in
Once upon
Hollywood.
a time, who looks exactly
Who looks
like him.
exactly
that,
like
that
him with
hair.
the hair. It's hysterical.
That's hysterical.
Fantastic.
I love it. Do a little. Let me do a little old TV real quick.
Yeah, hit some old TV.
Particularly old. Gunsmoke, season 18 and 19. Gunsmoke was on for 20 seasons. So there's a 20th season that's still lingering around out there, 1955, 1975. But this is seasons 18 and 19 of Gunsmoke. As a young person, I suppose, as a child, out in 1975, I would have been 14. I think that I watched most of these seasons live as they aired on Sunday nights in the Midwest with my mother, who absolutely loves some Gunsmoke. Man, Matt Dillon, James Arness is Matt Dillon, of course. Amanda Blake as Kitty. Good stuff on both of these special features, including audio commentaries with James Arness from 2005 on the season 18 disc, and other commentaries on the season 19 disc. So, what the hell? If you're a Gunsmoke completist, you get these two. You wait a little while, and season 20 will be out, and your collection will actually be complete. Swamp Thing, the contemporary Swamp Thing, 2019, as opposed to that middle 80s series. That was sort of one of the early first run syndication series in the early 80s when they first started doing that kind of stuff. Swamp Thing was one of those kind of cheap and cheesy. This one is less cheap, less cheesy, good actors. Virginia Madsen shows up in this. Same creators. This is the complete series, which is one season of Swamp Thing. The costuming here is just really, really fantastic. But Swamp Thing is Swamp Thing. Never a superhero that I was particularly all that much into. Swamp Thing. No, there's a digital code, but no special features on that. I got you, babe, a 5 DVD set with never before seen episodes of Sonny and Cher, the best of Sonny and Cher. This is just fantastic.
I love that show.
Dude,
I'm so glad that's out. It's so needed to come out. Yeah.
First of all, this is a period, an era when the variety show, the Carol Burnett show, for a little run there, you had the Bill Cosby show. Of course, you had the Flip Wilson show. Who was the guy that had the puppet that he would do with Jim Stratford or Stratton? I think Glenn Campbell even had one for a while. The Glenn Campbell show. Yep. So the variety show was a thing for that period. I don't know, middle 60s. Interestingly enough, they probably lingered around. I'd have to look up Carol Burnett to see how long Carol went. But certainly lingered around to the late 70s, if not the early 80s.
For sure.
And the Sonny and Cher show was among the best of them. Love me some Sonny Bono back in the day.
Yeah.
And
I loved
Cher,
all those variety shows.
I
loved them all.
Every one of them was great. And Cher, I think I matured watching Cher in those Bob Mackie costumes. That she wore every week. It just being so fine, it was insane. So anyway, fantastic.
The thing I will say about all these shows, and this one, this is Tom Jones, the Judy Garland show, the Sonny and Cher, all of those shows from that period, they had to go live every week. And they had to be rehearsed to the hilt. Mm-hmm. They have production numbers in those shows that are thrown together with those big, heavy old cameras that have to something move and hit their marks.
Floating around on dollies.
Floating around. I mean, it's when you understand the logistics involved in putting those shows together back then. They don't do that today.
No.
For sports, they do.
Yeah.
But not on this level.
No.
I mean, this is really intense stuff.
Hell, the 3 and 4 camera, the 3 and 4 camera sitcom is almost gone.
Yeah.
In front of a sort of quasi live audience, that kind of thing. Archie Bunker and all that kind of. That's pretty much almost
sad
gone.
If that directing, because that's a very special directing skill.
Yeah.
To be able to direct those shows.
It's a thing. Desi came out. Anyway, this was a hell of a thing. All kinds of great people show up on this. Dick Clark, Jerry Lewis, Jim Nabors, Joe Namath, Joe Willie, the Righteous Brothers, Dinah Shore sings for you. Of course, Sonny and Cher sing for you. Brand new interviews, never before seen episodes. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I got you, babe, the best of Sonny and Cher. Alrighty, that's for the oldies.
Fantastic.
A little. Let's do a little reality TV. The Survivor. Edge of Extinction. This is one of those sort of like amalgamations of all kinds of different Survivor moments and seasons of various different things. This is called Edge of Extinction. I watched the first season of Survivor, which was 20 years ago this year. There are 40 seasons, but that's 20 years because there are two seasons in a year. So 20 years ago this year, the first season of Survivor, the year 2000. I watched that and never watched another one after. So I imagine if you are a Survivor completist, you're probably going to want to pick this up and enjoy it. All kinds of stuff on this deluxe set, including getting to know the castaways and exit interviews. I can't tell you who these people. I'm looking at them. I'm trying to figure out from what seasons or whatnot these people are from. I don't know. But I suppose if you're into Survivor, you'll figure it out. A lot of deleted scenes on that too. Basketball Wives LA. The only thing I've seen less of than Survivor are Basketball Wives. I've literally never seen a single episode of Basketball Wives. I can tell you what's on the cover of this DVD.
Yep.
A lot of blazing hot black chicks in really tight little tiny dresses with expensive boob jobs. Basketball Wives LA. I guess that's what that is right there. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't I don't know less about anything. There's nothing that I know less about. Brain surgery,
Yeah.
we can talk a few minutes.
Yeah.
Basketball Wives, nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
It's okay.
For the
It's all right.
Basketball Wives LA.
It's all right.
That's insane. Did you look, love me some Jordan.
Yeah.
Peele,
Yeah.
Jordan Peele, us. Yeah, so the Twilight Zone reboot, season 1.
I have
No.
here's let me
Okay,
preface
you
this
take
and
it,
then
'cause
you can
I got
you can
issues.
chime in on this. I think there is I get it. Twilight Zone is one of the great brands. It's two words that are magic together.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone, Star Trek,
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
There are just certain they're all magic and they conjure something up. But Twilight Zone is a brand that they have been trying for decades to keep going and resurrect. It belongs to Rod Serling,
Yeah.
who was a writer, a very particular kind of writer with very particular sensibilities, and it is his realm. I get what they're trying to do today, but Jordan Peele is an auteur.
Yeah.
He's a writer-director with, I get it, sensibilities that they think kind of, that he has a Serling-like command of material, and I agree. I think Serling was a genre writer who legitimized stuff that we would otherwise dismiss as just pulp and horror and, crap. He gave a really professional, thoughtful veneer to these things, to science fiction, to horror, to fantasy. He made it thoughtful and interesting. And Jordan Peele does the same thing. He's taken horror into a new place.
Yeah.
He's made 2 horror films that are thoughtful and they have social commentary and they have really deep things to say. But he's not Rod Serling.
Yeah.
He's Jordan Peele.
Yeah. Yeah, so they should have created a series.
Thank you. Let him have his anthology series.
Yeah.
Don't call it Twilight Zone. Call it Jordan Peele's whatever.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
When you try to stick the two together, it's a round peg and a square hole.
Yeah.
And it's just not working.
Yeah, it's really nothing else to say, and it works least of all when they're doing remakes of episodes.
Yes, and
it works even worse
don't do
then.
that. Don't
Works
do
even
that.
worse then. This is it. I get it. He's a fan.
Of course he is.
Of course you are, and
Yeah.
he's built by some of that stuff. But that doesn't mean you should be doing that
No.
stuff, particularly when you're very, very good at doing your own stuff, as you just said.
I want to see. I don't want to see a new Twilight Zone. I want to see whatever the anthology show is that springboards from Jordan Peele's sensibility.
And by the way,
That's
the
what I
one
want to see.
in the middle '80s didn't work any better.
It was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was
didn't work any
horrible.
better.
And there was another one in there too that we've forgotten.
Yeah.
There was another one from the '90s or the early 2000s that lasted like a season and a half.
Yeah. So
Terrible.
anyway, did not work for me at all. One of the CBS All Access shows over there. 2 hours worth of special features. Also includes a black and white version of every episode.
Yep.
Why?
I don't know.
Me either.
I have no idea.
Okay. And lots of other special features too, but I don't know. Yeah. Hey, you know that the CBS All Access, they're doing something where they're bringing in a whole set of other content, and they're going to change their name and it's gonna be all like the Paramount content or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you heard about that?
Yeah.
It's that. I mean, what
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a thing. You know, these things they're starting to drive me crazy.
Yeah, it's all hectic. Let me hit some 4K.
Okay.
The first 4K we got here is Midway, which was a Roland Emmerich attempt to just be big and bloated and mad and crazy and CGI laden and to make some more money with a
Like he's been doing his whole life,
massive
his whole career.
cast. It's just Roland Emmerich being as Roland Emmerich as he can be, with Patrick Wilson, Woody Harrelson, Dennis Quaid, Nick Jonas, Aaron Eckhart, Luke Evans, Ed Skrein, and Mandy Moore.
Yeah,
holding down the
girl, and then the girl part.
And the girl part, Mandy Moore. Yeah, it's got an audio commentary and gobs of featurettes and, how breaking the Japanese code and interviews with survivors to legitimize it a little bit and the special effects and why Roland Emmerich wanted to do this, and none of it matters. All that matters to me is I have swag that they sent me, which, Tim?
Oh, sweet.
They're the cheapest, cheesiest looking bomber sunglasses.
Yeah,
aviator
bomber
sunglasses. They are with UV protection. And here's the worst part of it.
Perhaps
you ready for
not
this?
The top of the line.
We got this little. They actually have Midway, the title of the movie. The movie's logo is imprinted on one of the lenses.
Yes, it's etched in there.
You can't use these.
No,
they are unusable sunglasses.
Because you got to look at that.
What are they thinking? Like, hey, I'm gonna walk around in public wearing my Midway sunglasses. Hey, I'm cool. See, I got a logo on my sunglasses. It says Midway. It's a bad movie.
Well. Hey, look, man, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that Pablo Almodovar pen.
Yeah, I just the stuff that we get sometimes, it's so bizarre. Anyway, Midway, don't worry about it. Ford versus Ferrari, Oscar nominated, won a couple of awards. Pretty great. I love this movie. It won editing and it won one of the sound awards. And boy, did it deserve both of them. It is just sound editing and picture editing. This is absolutely an amazing, amazing movie. I love it. I know a lot of people don't. I was arguing with another friend this morning who thinks it's crap and historically inaccurate. I don't care. Yeah, okay, the 24-Hour War, the documentary it's based on, is a better movie. So what? This is fun. I had great fun with Matt Damon and Christian Bale acting in a really, really just completely classic old school 80s era movie directed by James Mangold, who just brought the mid-level studio sheen to this thing. And you know what? It's a really great movie and I love it. So I can't recommend this highly enough. It looks amazing in 4K. 2 Academy Awards, well deserved. Wonderful cast. Christian Bale finally, using his actual accent. John Bernthal is in this. He's great. Catriona Balfe, this Welsh actress who plays Christian Bale's wife in this thing, should have had an Oscar nomination. She was phenomenal. Tracy Letts, who's been all over the place for the longest time, is phenomenal in a supporting performance as Henry Ford II. I just enjoy this movie. And I actually know the DP, one of several DPs this week that I know. Faden Papa Michael. Don't know him really well, but we have common friends. And Faden, he just shot the hell out of this thing as well. Did a great job. So
that versus Rush, and just to make it interesting,
I think Rush is the better film. But boy, I love them both. I love them.
Better film?
I think Rush is
the more serious film.
It's a more serious film for sure.
But that's more entertaining.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
it's a lot more entertaining.
So, yeah.
Knives Out, Oscar nominated for screenplay, and Jojo Rabbit, winner of screenplay. Now, Knives Out was nominated for original. Jojo Rabbit won adapted, but I'm going to talk about both of these in the same breath. Both of them on 4K this week.
One of them quite controversial.
Yes. Now, Knives Out, it's a throwback whodunit. It's
not the controversial one.
Not the controversial one. I don't really think it works. I think it kind of cheats at a certain point, and it doesn't really stick the landing. But this thing has made a ton of money, and it's got a sequel in the works. And what the hell do I know? It's the kind of film that Rian Johnson started his career with, and before he got
Brick, yeah,
which we reviewed a few weeks ago, before he detoured into Star Wars and genre stuff, and this is kind of where he's most comfortable. There's a lot to love about this film. It's a fun cast. Daniel Craig is terrific as the detective. Jamie Lee Curtis is the matriarch of this, this psychotic family that whose patriarch just died, played by Christopher Plummer. Michael Shannon and Keith Stanfield is really good. Toni Collette is good. Don Johnson legitimizes himself again. Chris Evans, Ana de Armas really as the central figure in this whole thing. I mean, there's a lot of fun going on here, but again, I don't think it sticks the landing. Tons of extras. It looks really good on 4K. The Ryan Johnson commentary is quite a lot of fun. Deleted scenes, interviews, and whatnot. I mean, if you love it, you love it. Knives Out. There it is. Jojo Rabbit. I love this movie. Not everyone does. Jojo Rabbit, effectively based on a novel, story of a young boy in Germany during World War II under Hitler who fantasizes Hitler as his imaginary friend, trying to be a good little Nazi boy. And, of course, that treatment of Hitler as this kind of farcical imaginary friend really rubbed a lot of people wrong. However, if you look at interviews about the film by Taika Waititi, the writer-director who won an Oscar, Taika is really an interesting figure. Taika is half Maori and half Jewish. So he has this really interesting kind of biracial, bicultural upbringing. And he's talked a lot about that and how that informed this film. And I don't think anyone else could have made this film. Taika had to fight like mad for years to do this. Had to make a very successful Thor movie in order to have the cachet to be able to do something like this.
Yeah.
I feel like a proud papa. I'm going to say that because Taika in 2004 started his career with a short film, a black and white short film called Two Cars, One Night, which wound up being nominated for an Oscar. But before it was nominated for an Oscar, it won the Short Film Award at the AFI Fest. And the reason it won the Short Film Award at the AFI Fest was because I was on that damn jury. And I was on that damn jury with Ray McKinnon and Shohreh Aghdashloo, and all three of us loved the movie. We loved it. And it's amazing. It's basically a black and white anamorphic widescreen short where a bunch of people are in like a New Zealand honky-tonk, and there are these two kids in adjacent cars who have this connection, this little girl and this little boy, while their parents are inside, dancing and playing pool and doing whatever. It's in the parking lot. It's two cars in a parking lot. It's a beautiful short film. It's really beautiful. And Taika, that's the beginning of Taika. So I want to take a little bit of credit. Probably can't because his career would have been great anyway. But
beautiful.
Scarlett Johansson as the mother, Roman Griffin Davis as the little boy, Thomasin McKenzie as a Jewish girl who's being hidden in their apartment, and Taika Waititi plays Hitler himself because nobody else would do it. I really think, despite the tone, which is a problem for some people, it's a great film. And if you listen to the audio commentary, you will fully understand what he was going for. I would also say too that this film. I grew up, my mother was a war refugee, and my mother grew up telling me what it was like to be, she was about this boy's age at the time, what it was like in Germany at the time. It was not all a horror show. It was absurdism and horror in alternating doses, and that everything related to the Hitler Youth was this bizarre, farcical insanity, and this movie captures that. What my mother relayed to me, this movie captures. So despite the fact that it may strike people as needlessly comedic, I think it's important to understand that this represents something that was, in fact, true to that moment in time. And what a great film. Sam Rockwell should have had an Oscar nomination. I know that Scarlett Johansson got one, but man, Sam Rockwell was so good in this. So good in this. Could have gotten it for this or the Eastwood film. Didn't get it for either of them.
The producers came out when?
1968.
Okay, so 1968.
Yeah.
So 50.
Year of 2001.
50 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
So poster producers.
Yeah.
Is there? What's the problem with these? I mean, because the thing.
Yeah.
Some springtime. I would have thought that would have taken the air out of that.
Yeah, you'd have think. You'd have thought. All right, let's finish some TV.
Finish up the TV.
Finish up the TV.
Okay, got a big old Steelbox set here. First time in Steelbook. The 15th year anniversary of Avatar, The Last Airbender, the complete series from Nickelodeon. Absolutely fantastic. If you're into this, the Steelbook collection featuring all new art in each one of the books. It goes all the way back to the beginning of the series, works its way forward, full of all kinds of special features as well. The making of featurettes for across the arc of this series is just fantastic. Audio commentaries and much, much more. Look, as the last Avatar, the Last Airbender goes, this is the series. That movie was problematic.
Yeah.
For
never should have been taken away from the animated world.
Oh, for God's sake!
That's pretty great.
Then if you don't make a little white kid. For
Yeah.
That's perfectly insane, right there. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, all 51 episodes.
There were 51 episodes of that damn show.
The complete
Holy
series.
cow.
Burnt right through them. They did.
My goodness.
Interesting notion in this show. A young woman goes into a doomsday underground cult sort of like bunker and gets brought out. 15 years later, she has a 5th grade education. The world hasn't ended, and she has to rebuild her life in New York.
Okay.
And that's, you know what, that's kind of funny. And it sort of worked, I suppose, for 51 episodes. Not particularly anything by way of special features on this set. I suppose I like this because it's from those producers over there at 30 Rock, Tina Fey and all those kind of guys. They know what they're doing. The old series, and this is one of those tricky little series that sort of slipped its way in there and was on for a really long time. Sort of like after the heyday of the sitcom, Step by Step. And this, it's just one of those series.
I had like a vague recollection of that.
Exactly. It's one of those things. It came on in 1991, ran till 1998. And it was, it was just one of those series that ran in, like, I suppose it was first run syndication is what it was, as opposed to network series, like the ones we grew up watching, All in the Family and all kinds of.
Yeah.
But there were a whole bunch of these first run syndication sitcoms that starred folks like Suzanne Summers in this one here, and they would come on and run for a decade. And there's a whole cadre of a certain age, adult now, but child then, a kid who was like 10 years old in 1991, who know these shows inside and out, and it's crazy. So that's this is one of those shows, and it was kind of fun. After Suzanne Summers, Three's Company and all that kind of stuff. After Patrick Duffy, Dallas, and what you wonder where Patrick Duffy went? He was on this sitcom for 10 years. That's where he was. That's what the hell he was doing. Let's see, what do we have here? Years and Years is a series that's really quite good. Shades of what's the one that they just finished up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus about?
Vice. Veep.
Shades and Shades of that. Is Years and Years. It's about this family in the UK, more or less now going through all the sort of cultural machinations that the UK is going through.
Yeah.
So Brexit and sort of odd left wing, right wing politics that don't seem to make any sense anymore. You have Emma Thompson at the center of this family and all the machinations go through. It's a really, really good series, kind of dark, pointedly funny, and very sharply written. HBO original series that. Awkward, season 1 of this really sort of neat show about this young woman in her formative years growing up. She has this accident. And because of this accident where something extremely tragic happens, people start to treat her in a very particular way. And she goes from being very, very, very unpopular to being very, very popular, but not for reasons that you would want to be popular. And that makes it sort of interesting in and of itself. She's having a romance with one of the most popular boys in school, but she doesn't want anybody to know that she's having a romance with the popular boy in school. So it's really, really neat in that way. The In-Betweeners, love this series, a lot of fun. Special features include dating advice, which is just hysterical. Anyway, it follows these friends and their antics during their final years in school. It's a big chill right before they graduate.
I got
That's what this is.
Finishing off the 4K stuff. So this is a thing we're starting to get now, and everybody should be aware of this, is that we're getting 4K anniversary releases of movies. So when the anniversaries come up, for certain films, they're pumping them out in 4K because that's an excuse for people to double dip and upgrade. So we're going to get Gladiator and Braveheart on the horizon. But for now, we've got a couple here. These Steelbooks, anniversary 4K Steelbooks of Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island, 10th anniversary with Leonardo DiCaprio. Can you believe it's been 10 years since Shutter Island? I hate this movie.
I always hated it, too.
It's a terrible film. It's Scorsese trying to be all like weird and
Trying to be Christopher Nolan.
Trying to be Christopher Nolan for sure. Yeah, a little bit of Hitchcock, a lot of Christopher Nolan, and whatever. I mean, it's actually it's almost trying to be a little bit of Jacob's Ladder slash
Adrian Lyne,
slash the Sixth Sense. There's a little bit of that too, a little too Twilight Zone-y in its aspirations.
Not his bailiwick, Martin.
Not at all. Basically, it's an investigation into an island and an asylum, and Leonardo DiCaprio leads the investigation. Yada yada yada. And it's got a twisty ending that makes absolutely no sense at all. But whatever. It's out there. It's on Steelbook and it's on 4K. I don't like it. I can't recommend it, but I'm sure somebody will get a thrill out of it.
It was a popular movie.
30th anniversary Steelbook, Hunt for Red October.
Get out of here.
30.
You know what? Of course it is. One of the first junkets I did when we arrived was the junket for Hunt for Red October.
I know.
My God,
So
that was
depressing.
1990. Oh my God.
Well, they have a John McTiernan commentary on here. It is a pre-prison John McTiernan commentary.
Yeah.
So it's not John McTiernan since his life was substantially altered by going to prison in that whole fiasco that we won't get into.
I'd hire him.
I would too, in a heartbeat. He's paid his price. He's still a good director.
Can direct his ass off. Die Hard.
Absolutely, and he brings it for this one. I think the based on the Tom Clancy novel, it is, and this is one of the. This is one of the it might even be the first Jack Ryan film. Was this the first Jack Ryan film?
Yes.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think this was the first Jack Ryan film.
Yes, the first adaptation. A bunch of people played Jack, but
Alec Baldwin plays Jack Ryan in this one.
Yeah.
And of course it's with, Sean Connery as the defecting Soviet submarine captain. Really interesting directorial choice to migrate it from Russian into English, which is this little zoom in camera thing that he does early on, but it's very, very cool. Scott Glenn's in here as well. I still think this is a really, really good film. I think it's maybe one of McTiernan's best films, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's got some great.
This is the film that gave us Courtney B. Vance.
That's right.
Playing that sonar
That's right.
operator.
I mean, Courtney B. Vance first came on my radar in Hamburger Hill.
True enough.
That's
True
when
enough.
I first
with
caught
all those guys,
Yeah.
Dylan and McDermott, and all
but
those
it's
guys.
true.
Yeah.
He really this is what sort of pushed him into kind of leading man, the realm where he would be thereafter and where he's been since. So anyway, Larry Ferguson and Donald Stewart did a great screenplay for this as well. Hunt for Red October, 30th anniversary, Steelbook 4K. The last two 4Ks, okay. I'm going to start off here with Color Out of Space with Nicolas Cage, based on the H.P. Lovecraft story.
I don't know. How does he keep finding these?
I don't know.
Candy was the one before this one.
So the Nicolas Cage, pretty much. If you have an idea, Tim knows what I'm going to say. If you have an idea that is so unrealistically insane that you don't think it can be a movie, attach Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
It'll get made.
Yes.
This is bananas.
It's
this is
just
about
nuts.
a meteorite lands in this family's lawn, and the alien organism on it just infects the family, and
Yes.
everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
That's basically what this is about.
Oh, the thing that happens to the Redgrave, the thing that happens
Yeah.
to her in that movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Come on, man. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And why is she in this
Jolie
movie?
Richardson.
Julie Richardson, one
Yeah.
of the Redgraves. Julie Richardson.
Jolie Richardson.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Julie Richardson.
So let me tell you, the reason this movie is insane is this is the first movie in decades directed by Richard Stanley.
Yeah.
Now, Richard Stanley directed Hardware and Dust Devil, and really had this 80s era moment where he was the man. He was the new crazy man making these amazing genre movies. And then he was going to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau, and it all fell completely apart. If you've seen the documentary, it gets weird.
Oh, Marlon Brando.
And Brando gets weird, and then
He wouldn't wear pants.
He wouldn't wear pants. He put these hats and his makeup on. And
I don't blame him for not wearing the pants.
Yeah.
Because he weighed 900 pounds. And
Anyway.
there's no reason for him to walk.
Richard Stanley got fired. They replaced him with John Frankenheimer, and then the movie turned into crap, and it went nowhere. But the documentary about that film, by the way, is weird because Richard Stanley disappeared, and then it turned out that here he is going all Marlon Brando, like Apocalypse Now style, up the river. He's been living down the river from where they're shooting the movie.
Stalking the movie.
Crazy stuff. So, just so you understand, I've met Richard Stanley. I used to be neighbors with Adam Simon. Adam Simon, who's a great guy, by the way. Adam Simon, a filmmaker who did what was the dinosaur thing for Corman? With Diane Ladd.
Yeah, I remember the one you're talking about. Yeah.
So Adam Simon made a lot of great docs, though. I mean, Adam Simon's made some exploitation stuff. Carnosaur. Made Carnosaur with Diane Ladd. Diane Ladd called up Laura Dern one day and said, "Hey, I'm doing a dinosaur movie too." When Laura Dern was doing Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
it was like, really? It's not quite the same. Carnosaur, too funny. Anyway, so Adam Simon, neighbor of mine. I didn't know him, but I had a friend that I'd met in Cannes Film Festival who came to stay with me, who knew Adam Simon. And one day he says, "Hey, Adam Simon's a neighbor of yours, and I know Adam. He wants us to just come over and hang for, like tea and just like kick it." So one Sunday afternoon, I go down there with my buddy Eitan from the UK and to Adam Simon, who I didn't even know, lives like 3 blocks from me. And it's like, "Hey, Adam, it's good to meet you. You went to school with my friend Ray Green." "Oh, yeah, Ray Green." Like, we know all the same people, right?
Yeah.
Ray went to, our
USC,
fellow city god went to USC with Adam Simon. So we know a lot. It's just everybody in Hollywood knows everybody else. And if you don't, you know somebody in common. It's weird.
Mm.
So we're hanging out there. And then Adam says, he picks up the phone. "Yeah, come on over. We're just hanging out." Hangs up the phone. "Richard Stanley's coming over." And I'm like, "Really? Like hardware Richard Stanley? Seriously? Richard Stanley?" About 20 minutes later, Richard Stanley walks in, big old freaking book under his arm. And Richard Stanley, with he's like wearing a hat, the long black hair, the whole thing. I mean, this is about 1993, I think, 93, 94. And he comes in and he says, "You're not going to believe this most amazing book." And he drops the book down like something just got dug out of a basement. It's like this amazing chapter on necromancy. I'm like, you like really? Like, and he and Adam Simon just start going off on like all the weird occult. It's got, like pentagrams and stuff in it. It's all this fantastic stuff. And, this is Richard Stanley. He's into this stuff.
Yeah.
And he was preparing Dr. Moreau at the time.
Oh.
Right? He hadn't been fired yet. And he told us, he was talking to us. He's like, "Oh, yeah, it's going to, I'm going to do this and that." And it sounded amazing. And it never happened. But Richard Stanley, he's been living in France for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he's back in the saddle, but this movie is nuts.
Yeah. Look, you go get Nicolas Cage, and man, is that
this is an insane movie.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but it's crazy. And there's my Richard Stanley story.
I had to talk about it on the radio, so
So we're gonna wrap up here in just a moment, but I'm gonna wrap out with some animated stuff. And the last 4K is Frozen 2. Now, I didn't think Frozen needed a sequel.
It did not, particularly not a horrible sequel that abandons all of the themes of the original film.
But it made $1 bajillion, and so they're like, and they had two shorts that did really well, and so here we go. We get another. Okay, I hate Frozen 2 with a passion that is impossible to explain. This movie made me so angry watching it, I wanted to kill people. I wanted to go on a rampage and do what would only be done in a Richard Stanley movie. But I didn't, because I saw it with my family. And my daughter, who loves Frozen and who has, 18 or 19 figurines from Frozen in all different forms, truly loves it, and we saw it with her and her little friend Emma, and they love Frozen and all things related to Elsa and Anna. And on top of that, we've seen Frozen as a stage show at the Pantages, and there's also a Frozen stage show at the Disney California Adventure, which we have seen probably 800 times. and the soundtrack for Frozen 2. I have had to listen to in the car driving my daughter to school 800 or 900 times.
Yeah.
So I've been tortured to death with this Frozen stuff for a long time. I hate Frozen 2, but you know what? My daughter's going to be watching this until the end of time, so I better learn to suck it up.
Yeah,
There it is.
I don't know. I think when she's around 14 or 16, something's gonna kick in, and she's gonna be
Yeah.
like, "What the hell was I thinking?"
When she's old enough, I'll explain to her why
Yeah.
everything that they taught you in Frozen is undone and
Yeah.
betrayed. But
Yeah.
it truly, it's like Frozen was all about, learn to learn to love people who are different, learn to be who you are. And Frozen 2 is all about, you know what, if you're different, no one's ever going to love you.
Yep.
And just separate yourself from society and go find your own tribe. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're gonna hate. It's like,
And maybe that boy might help.
one movie was about inclusion and the other movie is not, and yet somehow they try to get around that by the fact that now in this they've introduced tons of black characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there are more brown people than there are Nordic people
in
this movie.
in that movie, yeah.
And that wasn't the case in the first Frozen.
No.
And so they've clearly done that to sort of soften what is not really about.
Yeah.
It's about hating other
It's
people.
not what the actual story is
It's
about.
not what the story is.
Yeah.
It's weird. But anyway, the last two we're going to make mention of here are two G-Kids animated films, not on 4K, but they're both out from Shout, and they're both really, really terrific, and they deserve your attention. G-Kids is just bringing it with so much amazing global animation. Fascinating stuff. This is the first one that I want to make mention of is called White Snake, which is in this amazing Chinese animated film. It's CG animation. It is beautiful. It's spectacular, and it's from an animation house I've never heard of before. Light Chaser Animation, absolutely amazing. It's kind of classic martial arts wuxia stuff about a woman who's rescued by a snake catcher in medieval China, and they go on this mythical journey. But it is absolutely amazing. It is just beautiful. The story's been kind of sort of done in some live action films, but it's an absolutely beautiful film. It's incredible animation. And then equally impressive is Another Day of Life, which has won all kinds of awards and festivals around the world. It's truly an amazing film. It's based on a novel by Rizgard Ricardo Kapuczynski, I think is how you pronounce it. But anyway, this is about the basically takes place during the civil war in Angola when it declared independence from Portugal in 1975. I know you're thinking, really, the Angolan Civil War is a subject for an animated film? It's amazing. It's truly amazing. It's beautiful. It's a 2D animation, and it's just it's not for kids. This is adult animation, but it's really powerful stuff. Beautiful, and I highly recommend Another Day of Life, based on the book by Rizgard Kapuczynski, directed by Raul de la Fuente and Damien Nanau, by the way. So there it is.
Wow.
That's our show this week, folks. We'll be back next week with more fun stuff, and hopefully I keep my voice and I can get rid of this cough soon. I only had one coughing attack. One coughing attack. Let's hope it goes away. We'll see you next week.